Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this retro review, we're going to be taking a look at Avengers just ahead of the release of Loki on Disney Plus in June. So we kind of wanted to go back and really kind of, when you think of like Loki, you think of like Avengers. I mean, we probably might do another one on Thor as well at some point, but Avengers kind of was really, I think, that big movie for Loki where he was the main villain. They've been building up to this thing and him being a threat. And for him to be a threat for the whole of the Avengers, that's quite a bit of a thing. But watching this back now, it's so strange watching about the Avengers, like after so much of the MCU, of how big this movie was when it came out, wasn't it?
It was huge. It broke all sorts of records and everybody was talking about it. And everyone was like, you have to go see this. And it was just such a fun experience as a movie, but it's also so different now from what we're used to with the MCU. Like Infinity War and Endgame were such different movies from the Avengers. Age of Ultron was kind of off on its own, doing its own thing. But like Avengers was the culmination of 4 years of storytelling at that point, and nobody had done anything like this. Or I mean, yeah, sure, there were bits and pieces here. You had like the Godzilla universe and things, but the way Marvel did it was totally new to movies. And it's fun to go back and see that. And also to view it like it was a huge risk at the time. Obviously, with hindsight, we're like, oh yeah, it was the Avengers, of course, the biggest movie of all time until the other Avengers movie. But it was a huge risk.
Well, this was it, because we had Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, 4, and Captain America: First Avenger before. So we had 5 movies building up to this movie. And what they'd done is essentially they had spent 10 hours building to this. And the payoff to all of this. I remember when, Incredible Hulk and, the ending of going, they're teasing something. They're teasing combination. Like, we'd never seen anything like it. And Avengers, it didn't disappoint. And I think that's, you're watching it back now and it's like, okay, all these heroes coming together, that's great. But at the time, it was, I still then, watching it back, the scene when they're all together and the camera spins around them is still as iconic then, of like, when that happened, that was the first time we'd seen them join together and become a team. And it still was then of like, that was goosebumps. That was, and it still does it now. That feeling of that was so unique. We never had it before. We'd never seen anything like it in terms of bringing together a team of superheroes. And it's because they took their time. Note to DC, this is what happens when you plan. It's like, because essentially this was the big problem of, this was always their big thing of, Batman versus Superman was trying to rush to catch up with the Avengers, and it didn't work. And this Justice League, they've done it backwards. They did that one, and then they've done the engine. And it's like Avengers worked because they did the groundwork. They did that. Scarlett Johansson was introduced as Black Widow in Iron Man 2, because that was basically her origin movie. That was the key point for Iron Man 2. Having just watched that one again, it was why it kind of instantly popped in my mind. And then obviously everybody else had all their. So Loki had already been established in 4, so he was already an established villain. So they didn't have to go through that whole who's Loki. You knew, and while they obviously can quickly go over it to kind of catch anybody up, the point was going, no, you needed to watch the other movies to watch this. This is movie 6 in a big soap kind of thing. But the Avengers is just such a big epic movie, and I don't think it's dated at all. It really has. It really is. If you were to say like, okay, watch one Avengers movie, this one, while Endgame and Infinity War and Civil War and stuff are better movies now for us, Avengers is still the best one for straight up general everybody.
Yeah, no, this is a straight action movie. And like you said, you can come into it having watched Iron Man 1 and 2, Thor and Captain America and all that. But you can also just go into it cold. Like, there really isn't any major thing where you're just going to go, I don't understand what's going on because I didn't watch Thor. You'll miss small things, and some of the characters will be a lot flatter than they are otherwise. But you can go into it just fine, just being like, yeah, it's a high budget action movie. This is like Pacific Rim or something
Yeah,
like that. You don't need a whole lot of backstory for Pacific Rim. It's giant robots fighting monsters. Good to go.
yeah,
But there was one thing that did a negative thing on that one that hasn't aged great for me was they didn't quite know how to do the costumes yet.
mm.
In particular, Captain America. Captain,
Yeah,
it, he looks a little out of place in that, and you can definitely tell like we want to be true to the comics, but we haven't figured out how to interpret it properly. And it really wasn't until Winter Soldier when
yeah,
they started getting Captain America outfits that were authentic to the comics, but also looked good on the screen.
yeah,
And there was also something I kept going on Scarlett's hair. The hair coloring was
yeah,
weird. Probably more because I'm used to her later appearances where
yeah,
she's got a more natural appearances and it's less red right in
yeah.
your face, you know. That was about it though. The rest of it, you know, Hawkeye looks great, Hulk looks great, Iron Man, of course, and Thor. So it was weird seeing Thor because I'm used to his Ragnarok appearance
Yeah.
now, and he's back in the Asgardian,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, the thing is, I such fun just watching it back. I was just like, oh, I mean, I've seen it so many times. I didn't really need to watch it back. I could have just done it anyway. But I
Yeah.
watched it, and I was like going, yeah, because I always like to watch them before we do these reviews again, even though I have seen them dozens of times. And it was just like, oh, this is just cool. It's just this great movie. Loki's so fun in it. I mean, just him with Hulk, you know, like. You know, oh, I'm a god, and just Hulk just smashes him around a bit, and you can see that thing of it, and then him just lying there, oh, he's like, because the thing is, like, he's really been like really been taken, and that makes them more fun. Obviously, with Ragnarok, that joke kind of ticks into it of like,
that's
why?
what that feels like. Yeah,
Yeah, like Loki's like that thing of going, yeah, I don't want to go anywhere near him.
I know there were a lot of payoffs in later movies, whether that was intentional or not. I think a lot we give the Marvel Universe credit for a lot of like going back, and I think a lot of it is you know,
I think it's the opposite.
fact.
They're looking.
Yeah.
They take. I mean, we're going to see a lot more of that with Loki coming up. With them kind of, you know, we saw it with Endgame of them going back to New York, and it's so funny. I mean, you think now of like years later, you know, or how many times did they reference this movie? The whole of all of the Defenders stuff, or the, you know, it happened in New York.
The event in New York.
The event in New York is mentioned in pretty much every single season we've had since. You know, we had Agents of Ultron, the Agents of Shield. We had the Runaway. Everyone mentions New York, even, and then we've had that spin-off of how, you know, like Spider-Man: Homecoming, how that was interconnected with all of this, and it is just kind of there's one scene in it which I did it still made me laugh was, you know, Captain America jumps onto this car and tells the police what to do, and the police are like, who the hell are you? Kind of thing of like, you're a guy in a dressed up costume, and why am I going to listen to you? And then he just beats the crap out of these kind of characters, and then he just turns around like, do this, do that, do this. It was like that instant respect of, yeah, well, he's the leader, we're going, like it took literally I love that, because there was that kind of instant thing of like, Captain, he knows what he's doing, and like, and it makes sense of a guy just running in that stupid outfit would have been like, you know, police were like, what, why, you know, you just, yeah, it I really enjoyed that whole scene of thing of
so say what you will about Joss. I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy about a lot deserved based on the reports. The guy knows how to write witty comment, witty little sequences like that. This movie is full of them. Firefly is full of them. I presume Buffy is also full of them. I never actually watched that show, but you can see it and that's really what made this movie really entertaining. Is you've got those, you know, even scenes where like Loki is getting interrogated by Black Widow, but he doesn't realize it, and he thinks that he's like messing with her head, and then she's like, oh, that's the plan, and then she just walks away completely unfazed. She's like, and Loki's, wait, what just happened? Did I get out trickstered? You know, great scenes like that.
But also as well, is it empowered her. It kind of, you know, because there was always that thing of, I always felt like with the Avengers, like Hawkeye and Black Widow always kind of was like, they were the human element, but they weren't really the characters we were interested in. Obviously, over time, I mean, here we are in 2021, we're finally getting the Black Widow and Hawkeye solo stuff, you know, what 10 years later. It's taken them this long to finally give them their own thing, because they didn't feel like they had their own reason to do it.
It's important to remember that the Avengers are undefeated when Hawkeye is actually involved in the fight. That's the main takeaway. I actually wanted to go back to one other thing. You were talking about like Hulk in there. I think this movie is exceptionally important for the Hulk as well, not necessarily in terms of like character arc, because obviously he's still just smash, but I think from a storytelling perspective, it showed that the Hulk can work as an interesting character, just not as the lead character. You know, we had the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, which was fine.
I enjoyed it. I always feel like that one gets like dropped into like, and I'm like, I watch it I've watched it so many times. I really enjoy. I hated Hulk, but I really enjoyed Incredible Hulk.
Right. The Hulk being the one with Eric Bana that was done by Ang Lee, I think. Incredible Hulk was a fun movie. It does tend to get forgotten, but when you had Avengers, you really get to see Hulk as a very entertaining character, primarily because you don't have to worry about anything else. You can just go Hulk, smash, Captain America, Hulk, smash. And that's all you need. And he is just beating the snot out of the Chitauri. You've got that scene that you referenced with Loki, where just bam, 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 bam. And then, he really gets to shine as a character because he's not the core character. He gets to have those sidekick moments. He only shows up when you need him to show up, and they don't have to come up with excuses to stick him into there.
I still think that kind of thing of like, we don't really know what it would have been different with Edward Norton in there, but I do still think that Mark Ruffalo just seems to work. He's much more naturally likable as Bruce Banner. I think he works better as Bruce, as just being more likable. And I think that's just how he is.
Which is actually why I'm sad that the first Hulk movie with Eric Bana, I thought he was very good as Banner, but the story he was given was junk. But Mark works much better with the quirkiness of the Avengers. Edward Norton is a bit more of a serious portrayal of the character, and Ruffalo, he just works well playing off of Tony. Like they with the way that Robert Downey Jr. was playing Tony, they just bounce off each other really well. And then you throw Chris Evans in there as with the straight man role, kind of keeping order. It's just great casting all around. Again, just watching this back and just going, it's just such a great movie. And it's just like it's one of those movies that, and my wife was the amount of times is like, especially around Christmas time when it goes on TV, because I think I did actually only watch it again at Christmas. Whenever it turned, it's kind of like for me, like Back to the Future and like Star Wars movies, of whenever they are on TV, you can just drop in and drop out, and you know what's going on, because I've seen it I'm probably up to about 20 views, I would probably imagine, if not more now. Other than I've just seen it that many times, and even just watching it back this past week, I'm just going, this is great. I love this movie. This is what you want to watch. And for me, this is such a great Marvel movie. I mean, if it wasn't great, we wouldn't have had the rest of the MCU. I mean, there's certainly that. You can talk about how, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Endgame, a couple of the other ones like Thor Ragnarok thrown in there are probably better movies, more entertaining. They've kind of figured out what they want to do with the story. They figured out how to evolve the story. This is still very much a traditional superhero movie. They wouldn't start to break the mold until Winter Soldier. But if this had not been successful, if this had not been entertaining, and not even at the level it was at, the fact that it made so much money guaranteed this was going to continue. But even if it had just been a modest success, made the money back and then a little bit on top, if it hadn't done that, we would never have gotten what we've got now. We would not have Doctor Strange. We would not have WandaVision. We wouldn't have Falcon and the Winter Soldier or the Loki show coming up. It just wouldn't be there. And we'd all be much more, not intellectually, but entertained.
Well, I mean, you look at like Marvel is just so important to Disney Plus, but also, like on my recent trip to China, before all this kind of happened, was, being out in Shanghai, being out in Hong Kong Disneyland, and how much Marvel has become part of like just Disney. You know, it's amazing. You know, they're just building the whole Avengers campus thing over in California now. You know, it's Avengers and stuff have become a core chunk now of Disney. You know, it's a big, huge chunk of it, and it, you know, it's up there. And I would say it's probably bigger than Star Wars. You know, it's in that kind of territory of, you know, well, they ain't releasing 10 Star Wars things this year. You know,
I mean,
yeah.
if it wasn't for the Mandalorian, we might not even be talking about Star Wars at all, considering how well the sequel trilogy was received. Mandalorian really did come in and reinvigorated the Star Wars franchise. And now, of course, next year or the next couple of years, we've got a lot more on the slate. But Marvel, and it makes it all the more mystifying why we didn't get anything in 2020. I know that COVID, but just the fact that there was not anything really properly slated. I know Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be, but
this is if you look back at 20, we would have got Black Widow, and we would have got Eternals, and we would have got Falcon and the Winter Soldier had everything gone to plan.
Right.
So we did have 3 things scheduled, and Black Widow and Eternals were in the can. You know, they were. It wasn't like they couldn't release them because it was just the fact they were worth more to hold on to them. It does mean that obviously 2020 is a much bigger bigger year for Marvel. But in some ways it makes it even better because I think we've been starved to content, so now it's like, you know, and then maybe that time, you know, we will watch these movies back a lot more and kind of soaked it in a little bit, you know, taking that time, and I think that does help.
That does help. All I meant was that they didn't have more content planned. I know Black Widow and Eternals were special cases because of you know what went on, and Winter Soldier was also. But you would have thought they would have a bit more in line. But now, obviously, we're in 2021 and we are packed with MCU content. Yeah. And on the one hand, you go, "Oh my God, there's so much MCU. We're going to be bored with it." But so far, we're just like, "No, this is fantastic. Keep giving it. Just IV it straight into my bloodstream."
And Avengers is just kind of, it's just got me just like, I need to watch 4 and 4 Ragnarok. That's definitely just to watch more Loki because he was just
not Dark World. No Dark World.
Do you know? I really should watch it again because it's one of those movies of like you always skip over. But yeah, so that one there's definitely just got me more hyped up for Loki.
I would say just on that last thing about Dark World, this is another one of those things we were talking about earlier in this episode where it's like, no, Endgame really made Dark World a better movie because now you have a proper finale to some of those storylines that got added in Dark World. It doesn't necessarily get moved up the list of MCU movies, but you can appreciate it better knowing that there's some satisfaction from it coming down. But yeah, Avengers. This movie, you could just put this on in the background,
and also in some ways, well, I mean, Avengers is going to help set up Loki much more because this is the Loki we've got. Mm-hmm. This is him, you know. Loki is set straight after this movie, you know, after all the changes they made in Endgame. So I think that is going to be much more of a play going into Loki. But can't wait for it. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Avengers movie. In the comments below. I'm going to go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. A big thank you to all of our patrons and YouTube channel members who do get access to these videos a little bit earlier than everybody else. And we shall see you guys in another episode. Laters.
Avengers assemble.
Assemble.
Yeah, no, they didn't even say it until Endgame, but whatever. Avengers assemble.
Avengers. And we're out.